Hello. It's been a while. Truly, it has been a while. I'm doing this a few days late. I probably should have done this days ago when I actually finished the book, but I didn't. So here we are now. I finished Furies of Calderon by Jim Butcher. Woo! And I also finished Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, but I'm not going to do a rating on that. So, I've got this. I also finished, oh my god, Stamped, the anti-racism book, as well, which I also, actually, I think I did write a rating. I did record a rating on that, so I'm lying. Anyway, I finished this book, and I have thoughts that I'm going to provide. And for the first half of this, be spoiler-free. The second half of it, I'll get into characters, because I do want to dive into characters. And I'm going to try to keep this short, because I do have stuff I want to do. Today's the last day of spring break, so I'm trying to do stuff before spring break's over. Sad face. Okay. So, this is the longest book by Jim Butcher I've ever read, because I'm pretty sure Battleground and Peace Talks aren't this long. I don't actually know the word count on those two, but I know the word count of this is higher than Cold Days, and Cold Days was the biggest wrestling book. So, here we are. It went by pretty quickly. Fairly quickly. I finished it in 4 days over spring break. So I didn't have school, but I was on a camping trip. So I was like in the car for most of that trip, and I can't read physical books while I'm in the car and it's moving. I get sick. So it's a shame. I started an audiobook while we're in the car. Haven't finished it yet, but I'm currently reading like 4 books right now. Oops. Kind of not supposed to do that. Oh well. It's a bad habit. But when I did get time, I stayed up at night reading this thing. Like, I stayed up late at night twice, maybe 3 times reading this thing. And I read this while I was skiing. Like, literally, I was waiting for my dad to complete a run, and I whipped this out on my phone, because I have a copy of this on my phone, and started reading. And I actually finished that while I was skiing, is when I finished this book. It's part of why I didn't rate it immediately. So, it wasn't slow, is what I'm trying to say. It wasn't like a bog read. It still went relatively quickly. I mean, it didn't go all that slowly. There was 3 times where I was like, okay, I'm stopping after this chapter, and then it would end on a particular note, and I'm like, damn it! Can I stop on a chapter that ends like that? So, there were moments where I had that. And sometimes I'd continue, and sometimes I'd be like, seething, laying in bed. Like, damn it, I have to go to sleep, but now I'm going to be thinking about that while I'm trying to go to sleep. It's a whole thing. So there's moments like that. There is not a cliffhanger ending. I'm happy that there's not, because I won't be returning to this series for a teensy bit of time. Not a long time, but teensy bit of time, and we'll talk about that at the end. No cliffhanger ending. Cliffhanger chapters? Yes. Cliffhanger chapters that you don't get a return back to for an amount of time? Yes. It's a little bit annoying, but sometimes it's well done, and that's when we'll get into the real review. Overall, I'd put this at 3.5 stars. It's not like the best rating, but it's not bad per se. It's not a bad book. It's very enjoyable and it's fun. I love the characters, which Butcher's really good at getting characters you love, or characters you despise with all your heart. He's very good at that. I hate a character, and I love a character. So, you know, the characters are interesting. The world building. When you open this book and you know what the pitch for this book was, like the reason he wrote it, when you know the reason he wrote it, you know it's either going to hit or miss. I think he did good. I'm not going to say he did perfect with it, but I really like where he went with the idea of the Pokemon which he actually zoomed out into the Shinto religion. Shinto, with the Roman Legion, it actually took me a while to realize what the Roman Legion, like, what in the story was the Roman Legion, but I got it eventually. It took me, I was dumb. It's like, is that the Roman Legion, or is it like everybody the Roman Legion? I get it now. I get it. It took me a bit though. So, there's a lot of people outside my door. I think he did well with the world building, and I like the idea. I'd want to see more Furies. I mean, they're called Furies. It's Furies of Calderon. I want to see more Furies. I want to know more about Furies. Outside of seeing them, we get like a rough list of possibilities of things they can do, but we don't actually know all that much. Like, do they have limits? Can they do anything? I mean, they can't do everything, but we don't know what they can't do. So far, we've gotten a list of things they can do, and we have no idea how far these things go, kind of, or how they're obtained, or, you know, stuff like that. So there's a lot of in there, a lot of things that we want to learn more about, but we don't get to grab yet, and therefore you keep reading. It's true. But from what we do see, like the abilities and like the idea of having Furies, I love it. I like it, and I really want to learn more about them, is what I'm saying there. So yeah. Now there's some things where it was hard to tell for a bit if they are Furies. So it isn't really a spoiler. There's something in this series called wind mains, and I couldn't tell. I mean, like, there's like a comment early on in the book that makes it sound like they're Furies, or that a Fury was making them. And so I don't know if wind mains are actually a creature, or if they're a Fury. So there's some things like that. That's a good example, where it's unclear what is happening and what is going on. That happens a few times, as I just said. That's an example, but it happens a few times. I can put this down. I don't know why I keep holding it. I'm trying to think of other examples, but there's times where it's unclear what the idea there was. Like, where it connects, what it means to the meaning as a whole, is what my teacher would say. So, there's details like that. Countering that with a good thing, we're going to go back and forth each time. A good thing. I love some of the quotes. There's not a lot of them, but there's a decent amount of quotes where you're like, philosophy. We got a philosophy character is basically what I'm saying. We have 2 philosophy characters. I like philosophy characters. You'll see that most series have 1 or 2. I don't know why, but it's like common. You'll like, that is the philosophy character. You can like see them and point at them. You're like, you're the one who's philosophical. In Dresden Files, it's Michael. In Mistborn, it's Ham. You know, it's like, that is the philosophical character. We have 2 characters in this that have philosophical comments multiple times, and they're pretty good. Some of them are good, especially the woman comments, because, you know, you gotta fight the cliche. I thought it was funny. Like, as a woman, I thought they were funny. So, young woman, whatever, me. People these days. So, yeah, there's some of those, like, zingers. There's also some funny moments. I didn't think there'd be that many funny moments. It's actually quite a while after the beginning before there's a funny moment. So for a long time, I thought there wouldn't be any. I thought it was going to be, like, super serious. And then he brought it back. He got some humor in there. It was actually pretty funny. It was very funny. So, there's also some of that kind of zinger. The very funny moments, he gets it. And you remember it, too. It was funny. So, yeah. Countering that with another thing again. Where do I want to go? I'm going to save my biggest complaint for last. So, My big complaint basically is the sole reason for the rating. So it's taking me a bit to come up with something else. This is something that kind of falls in between. It's a good thing and a bad thing.
Don't forget your trash recycling.
I know. I have a reminder.
And your real stuff.
I know. A thing that's a good thing and a bad thing. This isn't a spoiler, but it tells you something about how the book is organized. Authors make this choice when they're writing books. This is a third-person book, right? So you switch perspectives a few times. You're not in their perspective, like first person, but you're following that character. So third person, you're not omniscient. You're third person limited. There we go. So we have a third person limited book. Butcher decides to have one of the third person limited characters to be the bad guy. The bad guy. One of the bad guys. We all know in every series there's more than one. But let's say the anti-hero for now. He's not even the anti-hero. He's the anti-hero to not the hero. He's the anti-hero to the secondary hero. It gets confusing. But one of the perspectives you have throughout the book is on the bad side. And it feels weird at first. It doesn't quite make sense. It's giving away a lot, right? Because you know a lot of what's going to happen. You know a lot of what is going to happen. There we go. And so sometimes that may lessen a reaction to something. It may lessen something. Sometimes the plot gets a little bit predictable because of it. But sometimes Butcher comes back and he surprises you with it. And so I think it's an interesting choice for sure. I don't know. There's times where I didn't like it and there's times that I loved it. And so I don't really know how I actually feel about it. I'm about to get interrupted again. Good night. Okay. Okay, we're good. So, that's basically what I have to say about that. Overall, I had a bad feeling about it, and then he kind of recovered. So, I don't know. But it's something that's there, and you have to be understanding of it, I think. Open-mindedness would probably be a good way to go into this book. Especially when you know the premise of Pokemon and Roman legions. Alright, good thing again. Back to a good thing. I already said that I like characters. But I really like characters. I already talked about the Furies. I thought the Furies are interesting. What else? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. We'll say it as a good thing. Butcher is not all that well known, i.e. he's very well not known for his opening books. Usually he starts off straightforward and kind of limited, and a lot of readers will be very on his first books, and then it grows into a masterpiece kind of thing. He's that kind of writer. It won't start out great, but if you stick with him, it gets amazing. This is the first book of a series. And he did a really good job of keeping it limited, but also telling a lot. He didn't tell everything he could have. And I feel like he left some things open that could have been talked about now in this book. So maybe an explanation of the Mountain Fury or things like that. Because I don't think, they probably will, he's Butcher, but my impression is that some of that stuff won't come back again. And so this was like his opportunity to explain it. But it's possible that it comes back again and I'm just wrong. But in the beginning of the book, there's a map of the world. And I'm going to show the map. Map drawn by Priscilla Spencer. I love her. So here's a map, right? This entire book, which is called Furies of Calderon, takes place in Calderon. And Calderon is this one tiny dot up here. And I think that gives like a good explanation for this book. This book is limited. You do not leave Calderon. You're up there, right in the top right. There's a little tiny dot on this massive map. And so it's very limited, which opens up for the rest of the series to explain. But also, he digs into Calderon. He makes sure that it introduces a lot of the broad picture while focusing on just one small bit. And it means that there's a lot of unknown out there, which makes the reader want to learn more. So I think he did really good with that, having a limited space, but a lot in that space. Bad thing? I didn't like the ending. I just didn't like the ending. It felt cliche. It felt very cliche and maybe a little bit too straightforward. Like, after maybe the first, like, little tiny part of the ending, I was like, oh, this is predictable. This is very predictable. And I could see most of what was going to happen for the rest of the book. And so that was the thing. Also, along the same lines, I felt like some things were maybe dragged out a little long. I don't know, there's like a plot point or two that go on a lot longer than I thought they were going to go. And so as I was reading it, I was like, this is still going. This is just keeps going. And so I wasn't really expecting that. I'm not going to say it's entirely a bad thing, because some of it, he goes really good with it. God, that's another one of those things he didn't ever explain, but it's there. Never explained. So if you have this very long bit, and then you have something that wasn't explained in the long bit, I don't know. I really don't know, but it's there and it's lurking. So yeah, there's times where something just goes on and on and on, and it comes up over and over and over. Two more comments that kind of go down the middle. One of them's towards the bad side, one of them's towards the good side. Towards the bad side. Black and white? Smear it up. Well, okay, there is black and white in terms of, like, you know, bad guy, good guy. But it gets confusing for a bit. There's a character whose arc is very confusing. And so I think that's another thing that makes me kind of this kind of leads into my big point. But there's a character whose arc is just complicated. And so complicated. She's supposed to be a complicated character. And she's introduced as a very weird, complicated character. You kind of know from the get-go that she's going to be weird. But it gets weirder because he's trying to make her less weird. And it makes it weirder. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm pretty sure Butcher was trying to make the character make sense, but his explanation made less sense to me. That might not be what he was doing. He might have been trying to make her character this wavy, complex thing, and I just missed it. But she was confusing. And it is noticeable. He does good things with her. She moves the plot forward at times. But at the same time, if you're looking at the entire story from her view, it does not make sense to me. So, there is that. And I'll talk about her in spoilers when I can say her name. And then on the more of the good side, but still kind of in the middle, oh my god, brain, help me. Pacing. Other than those somewhat long bits, Butcher's good at having those breaks. Like, you read a bit, and you're like, okay, I feel ready to continue, kind of thing. You feel like you've got the grasp and are ready to continue on. Of course, being Butcher, he throws in curveballs all the time. And what he'll do is he'll take that block pacing, which feels good as a reader because you're like, okay, I'm ready to stop or whatever. Because sometimes you need stop points. It's true. But he'll take that and then he'll curveball it with that length thing again. And so sometimes he uses that dragging out to put in a surprise, or that very short bit to put in a surprise. He makes sure that he catches you off your toes at least 3 times. He's kind of known for it. Just a little. Though usually he does it very grandiose. And this one, some of them are subtle. But there's times where you'll think you've predicted what's going to happen, and then it continues. And it doesn't happen. Like, you keep expecting it to happen, and you keep reading, and you keep reading. You're like, it's going to happen. You keep reading, and it's not happening. And you're like, I was very sure this was going to happen. And you keep going, and then way later it'll happen when you didn't think it would. When you started to doubt yourself and think you were wrong is when it does happen. And so that's a thing that's kind of in the middle, but a little bit good, is that he takes that, he has good pacing, and then with that long section, he'll surprise you with it. But I think it could go either way. I'm going to say it's a positive thing. He fit in surprises that replaced my prediction. So, he did, like, unbalance me for a bit, basically, is what I'm saying. I'm just going to fit in the big complaint here. There's a lot of positives to this book. I love the characters. I love the idea. I love the kind of idea of the plot, but there's a problem with it. The problem with the plot is that it doesn't flow well, in my opinion. I think some of the plot points, you see it, it's making the arc, and then it jumps down, or it jumps up. And there's these little jumps, and they happen a few times. And I don't think they create the picture he wanted, and that kind of sunk into me. The more I read the book, the more I felt like the plots weren't quite connecting well. And maybe some of the characterization didn't connect well, like that one character I was talking about, or the secondary main character. Even her plot things sometimes jumped around a bit. And the big guy's plot things also jumped around a bit. So, you know, the overall plot jumped, and then some of the characters jumped. And it was noticeable, and it kept happening. And along the exact same lines, there was a plot line that I think should have ended way earlier than it did, but it continued on. And because it continued, it felt like a big jump. And also, along the same lines, but also kind of not, I know that Butcher's gonna weave this amazing theme of destiny throughout the series. The prologue straight up says destiny in the freaking, like, prologue letter thing that's even, it might be before the prologue. Yeah, it's before the prologue. So Mistborn has those epitaphs at the top. There's an epitaph in the prologue that straight up says, "It almost makes me believe in destiny." So we know from the get-go that there's going to be destiny weaved in this series, and I know that he's going to freaking nail it on the head. I don't think he does it in this first book. I think he misses it just barely. It's there and you can see it, but there's some things that don't feel like it's destiny and more felt like coincidence writing. I don't think that's an actual phrase, but that's what I call it. Basically, you're writing to make it work. You know, writing to make the plot work. Maybe not quite perfectly. Trader's Blade did that at the very end of the book. And I talked about that a lot in that review. That was the biggest problem with Trader's Blade, was that everything for a long time felt like coincidence writing. Everything happened perfectly, so the character would be able to get out perfectly fine or whatever. And with the theme of destiny, that's what you're fighting against. You want it to seem like it was like destined to happen, like coincidence. Everything happened perfectly. There's a lot of destiny in Dresden, and it works in Dresden. I think in this book, just standing alone, it did not work. But it is standing alone in a series. So we'll see. But as it stands, there's a lot of things that felt like it happened too perfectly. Maybe let go of the reins a little bit too much. Maybe a few more characters should have died, or a few more bad things should have happened to people. Maybe a lot more bad things should have happened to people. There's quite a bit of that everything's perfect, everything's fine, happy story kind of feel. And maybe I'm just a brutal person. But I think maybe there should have been a little bit less coincidence, a little bit less happiness. Because it definitely felt like writing to make it work at some points. And I'm going to get into spoilers on that point. So, spoilers, starting now. One of those coincidence characters is Fade, who's a slave. A slave. Now, Fade suddenly is not only a Legion soldier, but I think it's hinted that he's like Alrace? I don't know how to say that name, but the guy Aldrich keeps talking about over and over again. It's hinted that Fade is the guy that Aldrich's like, I killed you. I think that was too much, okay? I get there's destiny, but at that point, that felt like coincidence, like writing to make it work, or writing to like be like, oh, I think that out of all the slaves in all of the land, and supposedly Arace, I don't know how to say his name, supposedly that character just happened to die in Calderon Valley and just happened to become a slave for the Bernard Holt and just happened to be caught on this trip with Tabby. The trip with Tabby part, that's destiny. The fact that this one slave happened to be the right place, the right time, and happened to be Arace, but for some reason acts like a dumb slave in Bernard Holt. What do they call slaves? Idiots? They call slaves something. And he acts it up. He, like, plays it. And then all of a sudden he's a sword fighter. I don't like that. I mean, I get he's a metal crafter, and that's why he can sword fight. But the fact that it's hinted at that he happens to be Arace. God. It's Araris. And I don't think that's going to be a name on Google. Pronunciation. Yeah, no. That's not how I spell pronunciation. Is that the name? Maybe I'm spelling it wrong. Let's look. Okay. Wow, I skipped right to it. That's actually almost impressive. I didn't like that, is the point. I didn't like... Yeah, I am spelling it right. It just... I have no idea how to pronounce this name. How do you say this?
Araris.
Araris? And that works. It's easier than what I was saying, Eris. Okay, Eris. Let's pretend like it's pronounced Eris, even though I'm probably wrong. I didn't like that. It felt way too much, and I don't believe it. It's to the point where it's unbelievable. And so, the whole thing with Fade in the second half of the book, the prepared pack is fine, but having that pack prepared and giving it to Tavi for the pit, and it just happened to have the Molotov oil things, was on that edge between unbelievability and destiny. It was teetering on that. I decided to accept it, but it was on that line. It was almost too much. So there's that. I do like a lot of the smaller details where, like, the keepers, like, see in thermal. I liked that idea. And there's a lot of times that he just keeps you on your toes. You're like, okay, we're in a deadly situation. What's going to happen? And you wait. In some instances, you know that Tavi's going to be okay, because Tavi is, like, the main character of the series, and he's the destined character. We don't know what he's destined to, though you can make your guesses that he's destined to be the First Lord. Yes. But, you know for the most part that Tavi's going to be okay. At the same time, you're also like, Sometimes you think Tavi's going to get hurt a significant amount and not be able to save someone, like not get somewhere in time. And so, oops. It kind of works out. And we know in the past that Butcher has killed the main character. It's happened. So, I guess Tavi could technically die. But that doesn't mean his story's over, is the lesson I've learned. So, yeah. Anyway, even with that, like, knowledge, that, like, pretty good guess that he'll be fine, it still, like, suspends you with it. So there's that. Wind Mains. I already talked about Wind Mains. Alright, characters I did not like. Odiana. Odiana was the character that doesn't make any sense to me. She's a water witch. She's crazy in the head is what she was introduced as. She was introduced as crazy. And then I don't know. She's a bad guy. But this is like whole thing, you like save the people fighting in the thing. Honestly, what I thought would happen, and it didn't happen, was that Odiana would be used as a hostage against Aldrich. Did not happen. I thought that would have been interesting. If, like, Isana, I'll say Isana. It's not how you say it. It's probably Isana. But, Isana. Nah, I'll say Isana. If Isana used Odiana as, like, a hostage to Aldrich, and Aldrich, like, cared more about her, I think that would have made more sense than what actually happened. So there's that. And I do think that Cord plot was a plot that should have ended earlier than it did. It just kept getting dragged out. And it was, like, one of the more serious plot lines. I mean, okay, that's not true, because, we're talking about all out war and whatever, but one of the more adult-themed plot lines, we'll say it that way. It still could have ended earlier, or it could have fit together better. I didn't really like the arc of it. The beginning was interesting, and then there's this whole reveal of how what he was being tried for didn't actually happen, but Cord is still an asshole. It just doesn't fit. It hops. Like, I think if I were, like, to draw out the plots of the book, the Cord plot would go like, and then jump, and then down, like back this piece and this piece line up for a bit, and then this piece is like out of place, and then there's a piece over here that's like up above everything. It doesn't meet together like how I wanted it to. I don't know how to explain how I wanted it to because I don't actually know, but it just didn't work. It was intense for a bit, and I thought bad things would happen, and then it didn't. Nothing bad happened. And it seems like, weirdly, it seems like Isana does not have any trauma from it at all. And I don't know if I believe that. I mean, yeah, no. I think maybe she should have had a bit more trauma. Maybe she could have, like, shared the information with Bernard or something like that. But she's just fine. She's actually happy. And she's acting like it never happened. I don't know if I quite like that. It's not that I could believe it if it had maybe a little bit more reinforcement on it. She's an emotion feeler. She's like an empath. So, I don't know. I think she should be maybe like traumatized by it or something like that. Just a thought. Countering that again, I love Bernard. Bernard might be my favorite character so far, which is weird. It's not that I don't like Tavi. It's not that I don't like Amara. Well, I'm torn about Amara, okay? I like her, and then I don't like her. And then I like her, and then I don't like her. We'll get there. But Bernard, overall, I really like Bernard. I think he's one of the characters that flows best. Like, I think he kind of holds together the plot, too. He's in every single part of the book. Like, you start with Bernard, and you end with Bernard. And he's there throughout the entire story. So, yeah, it kind of paints him as a main character in this book. We don't know if that will stay true, but in this book he is painted as a main character, which I will admit that I did get 2 pieces of fan art before I read the book, which is unadvised. Do not get fan art before you read a series, ever, because you're going to see spoilers, most of the time. Turns out that there's not a lot of Alara fans, or, take that back, there's a lot of Alara fans, but most of them don't do art, or write anything, or freak out, or cosplay. Don't know why, but I know a lot of people who are Alara fans and think Alara is freaking amazing. The later books, apparently, are phenomenal. But when I did look, there wasn't a lot. So, I have 2 pieces of art. I didn't know who they were. Now I know that one of the art is of Amara with Cirrus, and the other one is Bernard with Brutus. Now, the art I have of Bernard and Brutus is huge. And so now I'm thinking, like, there's all this, like, talk of, like, what Brutus is doing. He's, like, made a platform that's floating and all these things, but I don't actually know what this looks like. Like, there's a rock dog with emerald eyes. How big is this rock dog? There's all these, like, small details that I'm, like, curious now. I'm like, how do Furies work? This was like a theory I had for a short amount of time. I'm not going to throw it away yet, but I don't believe it will happen, but I'm not going to throw it away yet. I wondered if Tavi would claim Gyarados, the mountain, as his Fury. Like, he would get, like, a big Fury. But I don't know how someone obtains a Fury. I don't know how any of that happens, because none of that got explained. So, but for a bit I was like, maybe he's destined to get Gyarados. Didn't happen. And I really doubt it, but it'd be funny. It's like, Gyarados, I choose you. Whatever. So, I had that theory for a bit, and I think that is probably impossible now, because it seems like Gyarados is a Fury that doesn't move. You can't take that Fury with you because it's the mountain. I'm very confused on how Furies work, basically. So, I would like to learn more about that. So, talked about Isana's storyline with Cord. Isana plus Cord. All of that is iffy for me. Odiana, iffy for me. I love Bernard. Amara. Amara is a spy for the First Lord. Amara is fairly smart at times. And Amara is also painted like a child. Like, we're talking about a Roman legion here. And you mature, you're like, supposedly, you're like mature around like 15, 16, 17, right? Maybe 14. Because you're learning, and you have to learn how to fight, and study, and know how to cook and all that. She's like gone the 9 miles. She's a spy for the First Lord. She's gone through a lot. Well, I don't know if she's done missions before, but like she's studied and, you know, she's painted like anybody who is a spy for, you know, the big guy. Painted as someone who knows what they're doing kind of thing. And for the most part, Amara knows what she's doing, but there's times where she acts more like she is a kid. You know? There's, I Googled it. I carefully Googled it. Carefully. What Amara's age was. And I got answers from 17 to 26. And I see why. She is in a position where she should be like maybe like 22. And I get that this is a Roman legion. Ages are different. I get it. Bernard Amara. I get the age thing is different. But she's a spy for the First Lord. So I can see some of her thinking being in that 20s range. I can see her being in her 20s. And then she has moments where she's acting like she's 16 or 17. And she's back in her 20s. And then 16, 17. And I'm a 17-year-old. And I feel like she's acting younger than me sometimes. You know, I don't think she's painting the picture of a 17-year-old. I think she's like a young teenager, and then suddenly she's older than a young teenager. And it just... It didn't sit with me right at moments, and then, you know, I'd forget it. But now that I'm, like, looking back through the whole book, I think there's moments where... I don't know. She was not really what I hoped for. I think this a little tiny bit of Mistborn spoilers, but they're not really spoilers. This is talking about the main character in Mistborn. The main character in Mistborn is Vin. She starts out as a 16-year-old and then she turns 17. So, you know, Vin turns 17 in the series. Vin acts like a teenager. Like, she is smart and then she's dumb. Teenagers are dumb. I'm gonna get that stereotype in there. I'm gonna say that we don't have wisdom. We don't act like adults, and we fall for the follies of smaller things or whatever. We'll get into love later, believe me. We'll get there. But if we're ignoring love, we fall for things easily. We're not wise. We don't really know what we're doing. We think we're doing something smart, but we're actually an idiot. It comes up a lot with teenagers. And that is very apparent in Vin's storyline. It's part of why I didn't like Will of Ascension. Part. We had a whole conversation about that. And I'm just going to say it now. If I had to put Furies of Calderon against Will of Ascension, one is the second book of a series, one is the first book of a series. That's rough. But I will put Furies of Calderon above Will of Ascension. Well of Ascension had that same problem where the plots didn't line up and some things just shouldn't have happened and they happened anyway, and I didn't like the ending. A lot of other people liked the ending. I didn't like the ending. This felt a little bit more put together than Well of Ascension. Not by a lot. And again, this is all my opinion. But Butcher just keeps the characters. You know, you love the characters. Well of Ascension... A lot of the characters fell apart, and it contributes to the storyline. But I think characters are probably maybe one of the things I like the most in a series. So, Butcher's just good at having those characters you love or you hate. In Well of Ascension, you lose a lot of the characters. You don't see them a lot. And then they'll come back, and then you don't see them. And that's a lot of Well of Ascension. So, there's a problem there. So anyway. point is that I put this above Love Ascension, and the point is that Amara has more of those follies of youth, dumb moments, emotional moments where she's looks like she's about to break down or something than you would expect for a spy of the First Lord. I'm not saying that she can't have breakdowns. She can. Everybody can. The First Lord can break down. I don't care. But what I'm saying is that she didn't hold herself in the way she should have. And I get that she's young and that she's, in training, and that Fidelius, another name I don't know how to say. Maybe I should have listened to the audiobook. Was like her teacher, all that stuff, but I still feel like she should have been a little bit more wise, a little bit more mature, a little bit more of all those things than she was. And so I would like her for a period of time because she would seem to like have herself together. She kind of is acting like someone who would be in her position at her age. And then she had times where it felt like she was acting way below her age. Overall, I think she might be like 20 years old. But I think she has these moments where she just suddenly is like 14. And she's 20 again. And so that's weird, and it doesn't quite sit with me. It kind of works, but it kind of doesn't. And she is very much an optimist. Wow. The amount of optimism in this book blows my mind. I do want to point that out as well. I'm a pessimist personally, so I notice it more. But there's a lot of optimism when there maybe should have been a lot more pessimism. Because, war, fighting. There's also a lot of people brushing stuff aside. Maybe there's too much of that. But that's getting into, like, very minute details, so we'll ignore that. Talking about Gaius, the First Lord. Because I also don't know how to say that name either. I notice a pattern. The First Lord. He acts like the First Lord, but then he doesn't act like the First Lord, but also I like when he doesn't. So, overall I like him. We don't see him a lot. We see him, like, twice in the whole book. And we hear a lot of rumors about him, which is interesting. I like the rumors. I like a lot of the rumors that are interspersed. It makes you go, rumors. Propaganda. Ooh, we're bringing out the real words. I really hope there's propaganda. It would be very interesting. PR game, let's go. We'll get to that. But overall, I like the First Lord. Continuing. Tabby and Kitai. I'm going to say Kitai. Maybe a little cliche. Maybe a lot of a bit cliche. You're a girl? Okay, the you're a girl thing did throw me off because it confused me. By the way, one quick aside, I freaking love Gargants, and I freaking love the phrase, my whelp. I don't know why, but those two things, big fan. Continuing. I'm a big fan of saying my whelp. That probably sounds like a bad thing. I found it funny. My whelp will go with you into the forest. I don't know why. I found that really funny. So, Gargants, whelps. Love it. Okay, continuing. That felt a little bit cliche, but in the end, he turned it into one of those Destiny theme points, and so I could kind of see it, but as it was happening, I was like, oh god, the love story. And I've learned now that every single series has a love story. I get it. It took me a while to accept that, because I don't really like love stories. I kind of hate love stories a lot of the time. Not always. There's times where I'll ship it, like Harry and Murphy. But also, that didn't happen for so long that it kind of didn't count for a while. But, I mean, technically I hated the very first love story, and I feel like that gives it away. So, I'm getting off topic, and I'm probably not making sense now. But the point is, usually I hate love stories. There's times where the author will pull it together and I'll actually start to enjoy it, but usually, right off the bat, I don't like it. And that's happened again, where right off the bat, I don't like the idea of the whole Tabby and Kitai thing. I have a feeling that it's going to happen again, especially with that hint at the end. Her mother, what? That, I have a feeling it's going to come back later. And usually that doesn't bode well for me, in my opinion. I usually don't like those. But it's possible that Butcher makes it work. Amara and Bernard, on the same topic of love story plots, things, you know, that stuff. I understand that it's Roman Legion, so I understand that the age difference thing is supposed to be fitting the time and all that. So let's just set all of that aside. Morals, modernization, set all of that aside. Just just like the characters, Amara, Bernard. Pretend like Amara's acting like her age in her 20s. Let's say she's 26, which is the max number I've seen. And let's pretend like Bernard is the age he looks like, which is like in his 30s. Whatever. Point is, ignoring all the age stuff. I can see it working, and I can see it leading this whole like protection thing going on. And it seemed like the First Lord just knew, which I think is another theme, is that the First Lord just knows everything, which is going to be intriguing. It seems like he has a little bit of omnipotence, but not a lot. I don't know if that makes sense. But it seems like there's like this under theme there that he might have it, but we don't know if he has it. But anyway, it seems like he knows about Amara and Bernard. It looks like he's like contributing to it at the end of the book. Again, I didn't like the ending. Maybe that's not what he was doing. The ending felt too tied in a bow for me. So, you know, there's that. But it seemed like he just knew. Maybe he didn't. It's a little hard to tell, but it's possible he just knew. So, let's pretend like he did. It means it will come up again. And I'm fine with it coming up again. And I think it could be useful to the plot and bring up points and give Amara problems and stuff. I think maybe the speed and whatever, we talk about how quick it goes and whatever. Whatever. It's a love story. And again, I don't typically like love stories right off the bat. It happened fast. And felt a little bit convenient, you know, all those things, but I don't think it was horribly done. I think it kind of worked, especially with him happening to be an Earthcrafter. I think it came together pretty well, other than the speed. And I'm pretty okay with it. Like, compared to Tavi and Kitai, Bernard and Amara works a little bit more. I can see it. And it's not quite, we'll say that much, not quite, like, stupid, idiotic. A lot of love stories, in my opinion, come together due to stupidity or in a stupid way. And usually that bothers me. For instance, for some reason, this is one of those things that made no absolute sense, and I've reread it 4 times now. No absolute sense. Kitai and Tavi felt each other. That scene does not make sense to me. I've reread it multiple times, and I don't know what was happening there. I have no clue. I thought that she was gonna become Tavi for a second. Never happened. Just became Kitai. I had no idea what was happening there. But there was this moment where they like felt each other, and then Tavi was like, I love this girl. I know that wasn't quite how it went, but that's how my brain interpreted it. And so, I don't like that. Amara and Bernard, it came together better. And so, I like that better. Again, we're setting aside age and all that stuff. Setting it aside. And I'm not even going to touch it. I'm scared to say anything in regards because of that. So, yeah. But it's not horribly done, is my point. And so, out of all the things I could think of right now, love story wise, it's pretty okay. We'll see if I like where it goes. That's the part that matters. Okay, so we touched on that. Quick aside on Aquitaine. Aquitaine. Oh my god. Okay, that is a name I should know how to pronounce, and I just can't. It's in freaking France. And I know it's in France. France, whatever. Okay, here we go. How do you say this name?
Aquitaine.
Aquitaine. Thank you. Okay, Aquitaine. Talk about Aquitaine. Interesting. We don't know a lot about him right off the get-go. And we know that Fidelius and Aldrich and Odiana-ish, technically, Odiana's kind of under Aldrich, they're all in cahoots-ish. And I kind of like it, and I like what we see from him, and I love what we see from Lady Aquitaine. Ignoring the Fidelius stuff, I'll touch on that later. But that throw-in at the very end of the book, where they're like, we have multiple knives on his back. I liked that throw-in. I think that saved it a bit for me. I did not see it coming. I should have, though. I really should have seen it coming, but I did not. I should have, but I did not. Fade should have died. Just saying. Okay. Something that I saw coming, and then it didn't happen, and I was upset. Fade should have died. But he didn't, so whatever. Oh, God. I should have said that when I was talking about Fade. Oh, well. That throw-in at the end with Lady Aquitaine, interesting. What is the purpose of Fidelius with Lady Oh, God. Help me. Help me. I'm sorry. I said Lady Aquitaine. I meant to say the First Lady of the First Lord. The throw-in with the First Lady is what I meant to be saying. The throw-in with the First Lady at the very end, that was well done. Back to Lady Aquitaine, who's now I'm talking about. The plot line with Lady Aquitaine with Fidelius, I don't know what the purpose is. That's going to come up later. It does not come up in this book. But he set the stone there, and I'm pretty sure he's going to do something with that. But nothing's happened yet, and so it seems purposeless so far. And I don't have any guesses on what he's going to do with it other than it'll give Fidelius problems or that she's using Fidelius or whatever. I want to say I do not like the idea of Fidelius becoming a good guy. If that happens, I will be upset. At any point in the series, I don't care how it's done. If Fidelius becomes a good guy for a bit, I'm not going to be the most happy person. So, my warning, it's there. Okay. So, Lady Aquitaine didn't quite make sense. I don't quite understand what her motives are. It's not like I need to understand what her motives are, but I'm a little bit confused. I can't tell if she's actually tricking Aquitaine or if Aquitaine knows. It could be either. So, there's that. Just one of those ideas, plot points. I like the development and the explanation and the execution of everything involving the Marat. Maybe some things didn't quite make sense. It actually took me a long time to understand that the one was the sun. It took me too long. Tavi had to say it before I clicked in my head. I was tired, okay, and I'm sorry. But that is interesting. And the idea of having a Fury in the sun? That intrigued me. You have a Fury in the sun. I don't actually know if they can harness the Fury or anything like that, but the overall idea of the Marat is pretty good. I don't understand why we have all these deadly types of animals and then a horse. I don't know how I feel about having the horse, okay? You have Gargants, which are freaking amazing. You have Herdbanes, which are freaking deadly. You have wolves, which are freaking sneaky. And then you have a horse. I didn't really get that. And I kept asking myself over and over again. I was like, how is the Horse Clan still going? And I'm pretty sure that there's a comment at some point that says that the Horse Clan's like dead or something like that. The Horse Clan's like the dying breed or whatever. Either that or they were talking about a different clan. But I think they were talking about horse. If the Horse Clan is the dying breed, that makes sense because they chose a horse. You know, these 3 other animals, they're a lot better than a horse. I feel like Gargants would be pretty slow, but apparently they move pretty fast for Gargant. So, you know. I keep imagining like a woolly mammoth, but bigger and with more horns and badass. It's basically, I'm just imagining a woolly mammoth, but like, woolly mammoth. I really like them. I think they're awesome. I do want to see more Gargants. I've actually seen a photo. Okay, I once saw a fan art of a Gargant, but I thought it was Dresden art, and now I realize it's Delara art. It took me a while to realize that. I saw it once upon a time. I have no idea where, and I'm not going to go look again, but I have it in my head. I can see it, the big horns. So, I love Gargants. I love the idea of the different Steadholts. I feel bad that Aldo Holt and all those places died, but also we didn't know shit about those people. All the people who did die, we didn't know anything about them. I don't know how I feel about Graham and, what's the other guy's name? The annoying guy. Oh my god, what's his name? The guy who replaced Graham. That guy. My throat is dying. Who's the guy who replaced Graham? Pyrellus. Pyrellus. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say any of these things. I'm going to probably have to research how to do that. But that guy and Graham, maybe a little bit more in-depth explanation on that would have been better. It didn't... He, like, loosely explained it all. But in the end, it didn't make sense. We never quite really understood what Graham's role is. Like, what does Graham do other than run the garrison? Like, what is his job? What does he do? Why can the Steadholts come to Graham and report something, and then there's a truth finder? I assume the truth finder finds the truth, but for some reason the truth finder in this book wasn't finding the truth. Which didn't really make sense to me, and we have no absolute clue what a truth finder does. Like, how do they find the truth? What are they? You know? Are they just an investigator? It's possible. Or they have a Fury that can find the truth. So, I don't understand what either of those characters are. So that's another thing, is that maybe that's a place where there could have been more explanation, talk, that stuff. Maybe it'll be revealed with Bernard's new role. So, yeah. That's what I was going to say. One of those things that didn't bode well for me, but I guess kind of makes sense, was the ending. The Lord Ruler, the First Lord. I just referenced a different book by accident when I said Lord Ruler. My bad. The First Lord, I'm going to do that a lot, I can already know it. The First Lord gave all these people positions. It's like, you are now going to be in my battalion. Or stuff like that. And then he gave Bernard the Graham position. And I think giving Bernard Graham's position did make sense. Making Isana the leader, Bernard Holt. Okay. It makes sense. Well, I think now it's Isana Holt. Whatever. Kind of makes sense. But I didn't like how perfectly tied in a bow it was. So, yeah. And the thing with Tavi, like, trying to get Dodger in, I get why, because he's scared of, like, having that happen again. But I do think Tavi would have claimed his reward. I don't think, like, I get that he cares now, because he's like, all I was doing is trying to save my sheep, so now he cares about saving sheep so it doesn't all happen again. I get it, but I still think his character would probably be accepting the award. It's like, it's the very, very last sentence of the book, and so it sticks in your head, and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, damn it, it could go either way. But I think he would have accepted the award and then rushed to get the Dodger and stuff in, or get Dodger and stuff in right before. Like, get up super early to do it. Whatever. I don't know. That's me being picky. And it's 11 o'clock at night on the last day of spring break, so I'm gonna be picky. Sorry. Okay. So for it being the longest Butcher book I've read, it didn't feel like the longest, and I think that's because it felt like the same amount of stuff that it fits into a Dresden book happened in this book, but this book, it was expanded longer because you were getting introduced to everything. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you took Cold Days, he could talk about a lot of things without explaining stuff because you've read the previous 13 books. The previous 13 books explain a lot of things for you. If you took Cold Days and then you had to explain everything, it's basically how this book goes. It fits in the same amount, but it has to explain stuff, so it goes a little bit bigger. So I'm not going to say that it, like, got a lot done. Your average Dresden book fits in a lot in a few pages, and that's part of why a lot of people like Butchers, that they're quick reads. I may or may not have read half the series in a day. Like, not half, like, half of the series I would read the book in a day, and then the next week I'd read the book in one day or whatever. So this book's bigger. And I don't know. It fit in a lot. Again, I really don't like the Cord storyline. The beginning was good. Just how it carried through on. I don't think that's a phrase. Throughout the rest, I didn't like it. But again, my overall rating of this book is a 3.5. I'm torn between the 3. The 3 is from the Cord plot and stuff not connecting and Odiana. And the 4 is from loving the characters and liking the idea. And so balancing that, I decided to do a 3.5. I don't actually remember what I rated Well of Ascension. I think I gave it like a 3. I might have given it a 4. It's been quite a long time since I've read that book, and I think the more I think back on it, the more I'm like, because I'm starting to forget the good parts. It's part of the problem with that book is that the good parts are forgettable. For me, because I didn't like the ending, and the ending is what everybody remembers. I apparently gave it 4 stars, this says. And I gave this book 4 stars on Goodreads. So, because you can't do 3.5. I think they're both in that like 3.5 range. And I think this comes out right on top. But I think it is close. I did like a lot of the politics in Well of Ascension, which is apparently what a lot of people hate. And there's that storyline that just does not work in Well of Ascension. There's that storyline that just does not work in this. But it works in this better than the Well of Ascension storyline did. There's a storyline in Well of Ascension that just did not work even half as well as the Cord one. And this book was a tad bit more serious and darker than Well of Ascension in some ways. Well of Ascension got darker in regards of killing characters and that stuff than this one did. I don't know, it's close. It's close. I liked Mistborn more than Well of Ascension. But I'm pretty sure, and we'll see, I'll like Academ's Fury more than Furies of Calderon. We'll see when we get there. But it will be some time because I have some other books to read. Time to talk about other books. End of spoilers, question mark. We'll say it's the end of spoilers. Pretend like I'm done because it is way too late at night. I have some other books I'm reading. Shocking, I know. We have books on Kindle. It's magical. I'm scrolling over the title so you can see it. There we go. I need to load up my own camera. Hi. Okay. Currently I'm reading For School. I was hoping to get more of this book done before tomorrow, but it's kind of late at night. I'm currently reading 1,000 Splendid Suns by Kite Runner. Or not by Kite Runner. By Khalid Hosseini? I'm sorry. I'm not good at pronouncing Afghan names. But this book is about a young girl growing up in Afghanistan. And part of why I chose this book, we got to choose our book. We had a list to choose from, and I chose this one. Part of why I chose this book is that my father served in Afghanistan, and I've known people who have been to Afghanistan. And so, you know, I kind of wanted to like expand on that knowledge. I don't think it's in my room. It's not. I have a bunch of Afghan relics. I have an Afghan coat that was made by an Afghan friend of my dad's and all that. I have a bunch of relics. Nothing is on the shelf though. I will put it soon, but I have this jingle truck. It's what Americans call it. I don't know what the term is in any of those languages, any of the Persian-based languages, but I have this jingle truck that has like an Urdu saying on it. Ooh, what does it say? It says something about God and the sun shining. Hold on. I'll find it really quick, I promise. I promise. I'm being super speedy here. But I have this Afghan truck, jingle truck, and supposedly jingle trucks are like in India and Pakistan more than they're in Afghanistan, but he bought it in Afghanistan, so I don't know. It says oh boy. Okay. Okay, maybe I don't know what it says. I wrote it down somewhere. It's like paradise. Maybe it's paradise. Paradise. Here we go. Nope. Crap. Shit. God, I've definitely wrote it down somewhere. I just don't know. Oh no. Oopsie. Oh no. Okay. I haven't used Discord in so long that I misused it. I'm sorry. Okay. Paradise. It definitely says something about paradise. I remember now. I don't remember what. Crap. I have one last place I'm going to check before I give up. Youth is wasted on the young. That's also a good saying. Alright, it was something about paradise being God being paradise or something like that. I don't remember. But anyway, point is I'm reading this book about a girl growing up in Afghanistan. I'm currently on chapter 8, so I'm not that far. But I plan to binge read it. I'm gonna get through it very quick. I got to chapter 8 like, you know, in like 20 minutes, maybe more. So far I'm liking it. I don't know where it's gonna go, but I have a feeling that it's going to explain things, and then there's going to be a jump. So we'll get there. But I'm basically 15% through the book right now. Basically. I'm halfway through part 1, and there's 4 parts. So there's that book. We also have... I have to load it up. I've been technically reading this for a while. There's this very unique, we'll say unique, book. It's a YA book that we're reading for book club. I am participating in book club at my school. book club read in the past, I missed it. Salt to the Sea by a name that I don't know how to pronounce. It's about World War II. And what makes it unique is the organization of the paragraphs. Basically, every single paragraph is 2 to 3 pages. And there aren't paragraph numbers at all. Every single 2 to 3 pages, it changes characters. Every time. And so, it's definitely unique, and it means that you have to read the book kind of quick to remember it all. I don't know if that makes sense, but because you're switching characters on a constant basis, and every single chapter is 2 to 3 pages, you have to like store everything that happens in your head, so that way when you come back, you're like, that's right, this is the person who's talking about this and this. So it's definitely unique. And again, there's not chapter numbers, so I can't say like where I am in the book, but I'm also about 15% in that book as well. The rest of book club already finished it. I was busy that day, so I didn't read it, and then I just haven't gotten back to it since. Oopsie. But it's a YA book, but it's about World War II. It's a bit serious, because, you know, it's about World War II. So it's interesting. I do need to get back to it soon, though. I should be able to fly through it. Salt of the Sea is about 460 pages, and 1,000 Splendid Suns is 368 pages. So, those are 2 books that I'm reading. The audiobook I listen to, I'm not...
version 2.
When I load it up, it automatically starts playing. I don't know why. An audiobook that I started, but I'm not gonna keep listening to actively. I'm gonna listen to it when I can't read a physical book, is We Are Legion, We Are Bob. It's supposed, what people say, and I'm not gonna be that person who keeps repeating what other people say, but I will say one time, I heard one person say that this book is apparently likened to Dresden. And after listening to the first chapter, I can kind of see why people liken it to Dresden. I'm not going to say that's why I'm listening to it. I'm listening to it because I'm intrigued and I want a sci-fi book. So here's my sci-fi book. Interestingly enough, it starts in the present. But then, it doesn't start in the present. It starts in the relative present-ish, a little bit ahead of time. And then it becomes sci-fi. So, but I really liked the first chapter. The first chapter, I think the middle was kind of just like mush. The beginning and the end of the first chapter were really good. And the middle is kind of filler information that you take in, but you don't know you'll need it later, kind of thing. But yeah, the first chapter of that book was very interesting. I listened to this during the car ride, and I returned back to chapter 2 because I may or may not have fallen asleep during it. Oopsie. So technically I got to like chapter 5, but things happened, okay? So I remember some of what happened, but I'm re-listening to it. So currently I'm on chapter 2 again, but it's fine. So I'll only listen to this when I have to, but I have it. So that's 3 books. And 4th, technically I have 5 books going. I still have Journeyer, and I'm going to touch on Journeyer soon. Okay. So Salt to the Sea and 1,000 Splendid Suns. Those are the 2 books that I'm finishing, hopefully in the next week or 2. Probably in the next week. I'm going to finish both of those, get them out of the way, done. And then we have this. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, I'm going to finish Mistborn because I want to finish something. And I want to be just done with Mistborn, okay? I don't want to say that I'm like, I want to be done with Mistborn, but I don't want to be 2 out of 3. So I have the 3rd, and we're going. And if I remember right, this one's bigger than the other 2. I think actually this is smaller than Wall of Ascension, ? I don't remember, but here we are, Hero of Ages. I didn't like the end of the last book, as I said, but the end of the last book sets up for the chaos of this book. Everybody talks about how crazy this book gets, and the Sander Lanch, all of that stuff. So here we are. Hero of Ages. I'm going to read it. It has tiny text, and it's 750 pages about, but tiny text. So, this will take time, okay? It will take time. But, it should be really good. It has characters I love. Well, it had characters I loved, and then Well of Ascension kind of marred those lines, so I don't know if I like them or not anymore. You know, Breeze. I used to like Breeze. I don't know if I like Breeze anymore. But, yeah. I think I like the idea of Breeze's powers. I don't think I like Breeze. I think that probably better paints the picture. Whatever. And Says, my opinion of Says has just gone... There's a lot of things, okay? Well of Ascension. Pain. I think part of the reason why... I regret waiting so long to touch on this, so that's why I'm going to read it now. So, I'm going to get through those 2 books as fast as I can, and I'm going to write up all my write-ups about that book, because I have to write write-ups on one of those books. After that, Hero of Ages. This will take time, but I'm going to try to be quick. I'm not going to rush, but I'm going to not take forever, because I've been slow on the books recently. I finally finished Furies Calderon, but it's a bit slow. So, Hero of Ages. After Hero of Ages, I have to read another chapter Journeyer, because I haven't read Journeyer in too long. So, the next chapter Journeyer is going to be the Desert chapter. I can't remember the name of the chapter. It's been that long. But the chapter where they're traveling through the desert. I think that's going to be very interesting. A lot of that theme of the journey, the Journeyer, will come out. So I'm going to read the Desert chapter. And it's one of the shorter chapters. I might read the Great Salt. Oh, I think it's called the Great Salt. What's the one after the Great Salt? The Great Salt is the name of the desert. So, the Great Salt. And then whatever the chapter is after that, I might do 2. Even though Journeyer is a big book, a lot of words, tiny text. It's a tall book with tiny text. So it goes on and on and on. I might do 2 chapters of Journeyer to make up for lost time. But Journeyer, still on the bookshelf over there. I need to read that. So it'll be Splendid Sun, Thousand Splendid Suns, Salt to the Sea, Hero of Ages, Journeyer, and then I'll get to Academ's Fury. I know, this is kind of chaotic. And if you didn't know, I set Gardens of the Moon aside. For reasons. Okay, I could not read that series along with school. It would not be possible. I made that decision, so I set that aside. Books I bought, and then everything's done. I have no idea what books I had last time I recorded. Let's pretend like I last recorded was Stamped, which was a while ago. I have a lot of books now. So we'll just go through everything I own, okay? I own The Blade itself on Kindle. I'm going to buy the paperback. I know that it's probably bad to buy something on Kindle and then buy the paperback, but I will own that trilogy on paperback. Because damn it, I like the books. The look of the books. So, Abercrombie. My first Abercrombie book that I own is The Blade itself. Then I got some graphic novels. I bought The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. Just because. Why not? Get a really old mystery book. Why not? Heart of Darkness, which I finished reading. There's that. That's my mom's book, not mine. I bought The Vanishing Man by Charles Finch. I think I talked about that last video. But I have that book. I actually don't know anything about it. I bought it on a whim because it was like $1. And it's a pretty cover. And it's a mystery. I like mysteries. So I was like, I need more mystery books, and got it. I got the first 2 books of Terry Goodkind's, what's the name of that series? Sword of Truth series, I think. Yeah, Sword of Truth. The first 2 books of Sword of Truth. I think I said this last time, but I'll just repeat myself. I currently have 3 Discworld books. One of them is a book that people have controversy on, apparently, and then I have Guards, and Equal Rights. I'm going to start with Guards. That's what I decided. And I have no fucking clue where I'm going from there, but we'll get there. Let's see. I bought Pushing Ice by Alastair Reynolds. I also bought, on the bookshelf, House of Suns by Alastair Reynolds. I'm going to read House of Suns because it's a standalone. And Pushing Ice, I believe, is the second book in his series. Basically, most people say if you like House of Suns, you'll like the series. So I got House of Suns. And I got part of the series because I have a feeling that I'm going to like House of Suns. Sci-fi. We're talking about sci-fi. I don't think there's any other book on that shelf that you guys haven't seen before. I think everything on there, aside from House of Suns, is not new. So, there's that. I still need to buy Shadows of Self. It hasn't gone on sale. I've been waiting forever. It has not happened. So there's that. Okay, continuing. I bought a random, just on a whim, I went ahead and bought Madame Fourcade's Secret War. It's a World War II book. It's historical fiction. It's realistic historical fiction. It's based on real events, but it's still fiction. So I bought that for like $2. Purely on a whim. The idea of it sounded interesting. Continuing. I think I talked about this before, but I bought Promised Land by Robert B. Parker, which is the 4th book in his series. I don't think his series has to be read in order, but it might. So I own it, is the point. So I have that. I bought the first book in quotations of the Star Wars series, like the massive Star Wars thing. I went ahead and bought Thrawn Ascendancy, is basically what I'm saying. That's where people start. I bought the book where people start. I don't plan to go through all of Star Wars at all, but I went ahead and got the first one. Already said that, already had that. Meh. Okay, what is this? That's my mom's book. What about this? Here we go. I got Rage of Dragons on Kindle by Evan Winter. I got Sword of Kaigon by M.L. Wang because it kept going on sale over and over and over and over again for $1, and I was like, damn it, and so I got it for $1. I got Time of Dread by John Gwynne, which is, I have John Gwynne's Faithful and the Fallen right here. Time of Dread is the first book of the sequel trilogy, which takes place years and years and years later. So I have that. I got Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. I think that's new. The first book of Riri Revelations, as I understand it. And that is all the books I've got. I haven't been buying a lot recently because either it won't go on sale or I think I'll get it later, kind of thing. So yeah, I do have a lot of books to read, as you can see on the shelf. We're getting there. I swear. I'm going to try to read as much of this shelf as I can before August of 2020. I know I'm not going to get them all. So yeah. Side comment. I think I'm going to postpone. Oh my god, what's the name of that series? Great Coats again. A second time. I'll just have to wait. Okay, I'm sorry, Great Coats. I've read the first book of your series. You're gonna have to wait. And then Malazan is also gonna have to wait for a while. Sorry, Malazan. I'll come back. I don't think I have the time nor the amount of reading knowledge needed to do Malazan yet. But I'll come back. Yay. I do really like the idea of Malazan. It sounded really cool, and there was a very badass fight that was very badass and awesome and crazy. I loved it. But I'll come back. So basically what I'm saying is, I need to finish Codex Alera, I need to finish Mistborn. I don't think I'm going to finish Stormlight Archive in time, so we're going to set that aside for now. I need to read Robin Hobb's trilogy. That should go by very quick. Probably. Apparently they get Robin Hobb's like a character killer is what I hear. So, interesting. I really, 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 really want to read the Powder Mage trilogy. I've been wanting to read it for a long time now. So I think I'm going to finish Mistborn, read Codex Alera, and then go straight to Powder Mage. Because I really have been wanting to read Powder Mage for a while now. So yeah, Powder Mage. After Powder Mage, I'll probably go to Faithful and the Fallen. Apparently, even though they're big books, they go by quick. So Faithful and the Fallen after Powder Mage. And then that's when it gets iffy. I could read a standalone. Well, I mean Journeyer. You gotta finish Journeyer. But I could read a standalone, maybe like House of Suns, you know, sci-fi, lead away. Or I could not. I think I'm probably gonna take Dune with me to school. So I'm not gonna read Dune yet. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'll get to Dune. Believe me. But it'll be a bit. The problem with starting Christopher Rocchio's series is that it's not over yet, and he's still writing the 4th book. Is there a release date on that 4th book? Let's check that really quick. It's been a while. There's no release date on Olympian Affair, so I will not read Aeronauts Windlass until I hear anything about Olympian Affair. When Olympian Affair gets announced, that's when I'll read it. Has not happened yet. God, what's the name of the 4th book of Christopher? Oh my god, I cannot spell. Christopher Rocchio. Kingdoms of Death. Any announcements? Expected on July 8th of 2021. There you go. I might wait until then to read that. By the way, John Gwen, he's releasing a new book this year, which I had no idea. But there's a new book coming out this year. His new series, I believe, has nothing to do with Faithful and the Fallen, but I may be wrong. I don't know. It looks like it has nothing to do with Faithful and the Fallen. But I haven't read Faithful and the Fallen, so I wouldn't know. Point is, it's called Shadow of the Gods, and it's going to be, the name of the series is the Bloodsworn Trilogy. So yeah, the cover looks awesome, by the way. There's like a huge dragon, and then this little itty bitty man. And the man is so tiny. So, it's a good cover. I think they did a good job with that. So yeah, that book comes out this year. Currently, it's $10 pre-order, which is kind of cheap for a pre-order. So, I thought about it. But I don't know anything, and I haven't even read Faithful and the Fallen yet, so I think I'll return to that one day. So, yeah. I'm putting some thought into reading The Forgetting Moon. I don't own it, so, you know, there's your first problem, but I might read that, maybe, a while from now. Point is, I have depicted everything I plan to read for a while now. And I'm done. Game over, man. Game over.